I just finished watching the Supreme Court. It was a beautiful thing to watch in many respects. It's unfortunate that we have to go through a thing like that. I consider it to be more election interference by the Democrats. That's what they're doing. The good news is we're leading virtually every poll. We're leading I don't even know if we have anymore. I'm not sure that we even have a Republican candidate, somebody running, but not making any impact. So as you know, we won Iowa, we won New Hampshire in records, and each one a record. We think we're going to do very well. I'm heading out right now to Nevada for the caucus and the caucuses, and I think we're going to do very well there. All polls indicate we're in the 90s, maybe more than the 90s. We certainly did well in a primary that didn't matter, where they voted very nicely. And we have tremendous support from the people of our country. They hate what's happening at the border. They hate what's happening just generally. We're not a respected country anymore. We're laughed at all over the world. They're laughing at us. And they hate what's happening. They hate seeing it. They love our country. They want it to come back. And we're going to do that. If you think about it, had the results of the election been different, that would be nice. You wouldn't have the Ukrainian situation with Russia. You would not have had an attack on Israel, which was so horrible. You would not have had inflation. You wouldn't have China talking about Taiwan. You wouldn't have any of the problems that we have today. And you certainly had a broke Iran, and now you have a very rich Iran. Iran was broke when I left. They had no money to give to Hamas. They had no money to give to Hezbollah. And now they have 200 billion. Plus, as you probably know, people don't like to admit it, they certainly control Iraq. And Iraq has another 300 billion. So you have a very rich group of countries. And as you know, Iraq should have never happened. That was a balance against Iran. And we blew out the balance. And now Iran has essentially Iraq. And Iraq doesn't like saying that, but that's the way it is. And it's a shame. The world is in tremendous danger. We're in danger of possibly a World War III. And we have a man who's absolutely the worst president in the history of our country. He can't put two sentences together. He's not going to be able to negotiate with Putin or Xi or Kim Jong-un, North Korea. Not going to be able to negotiate with anybody. All he knows how to do is drop bombs all over the place, meaningless bombs, except they kill a lot of people. It costs a lot of money. Every time you see a bomb, it's another $1 million. And it actually sets us back. We have peace through strength. This should not be happening. The Middle East is blowing up. It's blowing up. And a lot of people are being killed, and it's so unnecessary. So I just say that in watching the Supreme Court today, I thought it's a very beautiful process. I hope that democracy in this country will continue. Because right now we have a very, very tough situation with all of the radical left ideas, with the weaponization of politics. They weaponize it like it's never been weaponized before. It's totally illegal, but they do it anyway. And it has to stop. Every one of the court cases that I'm involved, every single one, civil, whether it's the attorney generals or the district attorneys. You look at Fani in Georgia. They had many meetings with the White House and with the DOJ. They went there, 8-hour meetings. That was all staged. That was a phony hoax. And now you look at it, and it is a phony hoax. And hopefully that case will be dismissed in short order. It's a disgrace to this country. But they work together with the Justice Department and the White House, and not supposed to do that. Every one of these cases you see comes out of the White House. It comes out of Biden. It's election interference, and it's really very sad. I thought the presentation today was a very good one. I think it was well received. I hope it was well received. You have millions of people that are out there wanting to vote, and they happen to want to vote for me or the Republican Party, or whatever you want to, however you want to phrase it. But I'm the one running, and we are leading in every poll. We're leading in the local polls, in the state polls, and we're leading in the swing state polls, and we're leading very big in the national polls. So it's been a very great honor. We love the country. I think the reason we have such big leads, frankly, is that they loved 4 years of us compared to the 3 years plus the 3 years that they've gone with Biden. where you have open borders, you have crime. Nobody's ever seen crime like this, what's happening. And now the crime is being committed, much of it by the migrants that have come in illegally to our country. I was wondering about that. I said, you know, a lot of these people come out of jails, they come out of mental institutions, they come out of places that you don't want to know about. We don't even know where they come from. We don't know who they are, where they are. They're being dumped in from mental institutions, from prisons and jails, and many terrorists are coming into our country. We're going to be paying a big price. They have to stop it. They have to close the border. By the way, the president can do it just by saying, I want the border closed. I closed the border. We had the safest border in the history of our country. Now we have the most unsafe border in the history of the world. There's never been a country with a border like this, not even a third world country. So we are, again, we're going out to Nevada right now. We'll be out there. Some of you are going to be out there with us. Otherwise, your colleagues will be. And hopefully we're going to have a big night, caucus tonight. We're going to have a very big night. We expect to have a very big night. The Virgin Islands, as you know, are also very much in play today, so we'll be hearing about them sometime during the day or later on in the evening. And it's an honor to have you at Mar-a-Lago. I hope you like it. It's worth a little more than $18 million. There's another case. It says worth $18 million. I said, which cabin are we talking about? But that's the kind of justice we have. When they say that to try and build up a case, that was a shame. But that gave up so much. When they said that, that gave up so much that Mar-a-Lago's worth $18 million. They had it appraised for, as you know, 50 to 100 times that amount. And we have a judge that's what he said. And he's supposed to be ruling on me. But who knows? Maybe he'll be fair. I doubt it, but maybe he'll be fair. So I want to thank everybody. And by the way, we proved that case 100%, 5 times over. That case is 100% proven, 5 times over. We've never seen anything like it. He just wouldn't dismiss it, no matter what. Shouldn't it be there? It should have been in the commercial division. Anyway, it's an honor to have you. I look forward to having you again, and I'll probably see you out in Nevada. Thank you very much.
The U.S. Supreme Court is said to be broadly skeptical in early reporting about the effort to try and kick you off the ballot. Having said that, though, speak to the argument, legal and otherwise, that your detractors have made leading up to the day. And it's an argument that was given voice by Mitch McConnell, the Senate Republican leader, not long.
All right, I got the gist.
There's no question.
Yeah, I got the
that
gist.
President Trump is practically and morally responsible for provoking the events of the day.
He doesn't say that anymore. So let me just tell you that I heard and I watched, and the one thing I'll say is they kept saying about what I said right after the insurrection. Because I think it was an insurrection caused by Nancy Pelosi. This was an insurrection, if it was an insurrection, which there were no guns, there were no anything except for the fact that they shot Ashley Babbitt. Somebody from police force shot Ashley Babbitt. So unnecessary, so sad, so horrible. But there were no guns, there were no anything. But if you take a look at my words, right after, you take a look at my speech from the Rose Garden, which was very shortly after, or you take a look at I'm only on Truth now, but at that time we were tweeting and I was on Twitter. If you take a look at those 5 or 6 tweets, you will see very beautiful, very heartwarming statements. Go home, the police are doing their job, etc., etc. Beautiful statements. If you see my statement made in the Rose Garden, I think you have to watch that, because today they said the words of Trump. Now, if you take a look at the words of Democrats over the last period of time, look at Schumer's statement about the Supreme Court on the steps of the Supreme Court. He sounded like a mob boss. Take a look at any of them. Take a look at any. We put together a tape of vicious, violent statements made by Democrats. Nobody brings that up. Take a look at Maxine Waters and the vicious statements that she made. I didn't do that. I said peacefully and patriotically. The speech was called Peacefully and Patriotically. It's peacefully and patriotically. He said I said bad statement. It was the exact opposite. So I think you should take a look at the statements that I made before and after, and you'll see a whole different dialogue.
Mr. President, you just mentioned Chinese President Xi. You said that you were going to impose 60% tariffs should you get back in office. Can you explain your rationale there?
We want to bring business back to the U.S. They're stealing our business. They're taking our business at levels that nobody's ever seen before. By doing that, we bring business back, manufacturing back to the United States, which I was doing. I took in hundreds of billions of dollars from China. No president had ever taken in 10 cents, not 10 cents. I took in hundreds of billions of dollars, and jobs were coming back. I was saving steel companies. Now they're blowing it. When I see U.S. steel being bought by Japan, what a sad thing that is to me. What a sad thing that is. So we want to bring jobs back. Very simple. Thank you.
Do you still have confidence in Speaker Johnson after the failed Mayorkas impeachment effort?
I do have confidence in him. Yeah, I very much do. I think he's a very good man, and I have great confidence in him.
Why is Nikki Haley still in the race when you're dominating in the polls?
Oh, I love that question. Thank you very much. You just said it. I don't know why she continues, but let her continue. We have a big one coming up, as you know, in South Carolina, and the polls are indicating that we're through the roof on that one. We're leading by, I guess, 35%, 35 points. So I don't know. I think she hurts herself, but I think she hurts the party, and in a way hurts the country. But it seems to be dying. She did poorly in Iowa. She did very poorly in Iowa, actually. She came in third place. Ron DeSantis beat her, although you wouldn't know that if you listened to her speech. She did poorly in New Hampshire. She did poorly no matter where she went. I don't know how the results aren't in yet from the Virgin Islands, but I know she's playing it very hard. And in Nevada, she lost to no name. She had a no name, and she lost by, I guess, 40 points. So I don't know why she continues, but she's a, I don't really care if she continues. I think it's bad for the party. I think it's actually bad for her too.
Mr. President, thank you for having us on our
Thank you.
here. Given that the battle is over presidential immunity, I'm going to ask you about presidents and vice presidents being viewed from any legal consequences for any action they take during their term.
Well, I can say presidential immunity, which we'll be talking about because that will be upcoming, is very, very important for a president to have. If a president doesn't have immunity, he really doesn't have a presidency. He can be told to do things that he would never do. He can do really bad things for our country. Presidential immunity is imperative. It's going to be very, very important. And I'd rather talk about that next week. But there is nothing more important to a presidency than immunity, because they have to be free to make decisions without saying, oh, if I do this or if I do that, as soon as I get out of office, we're going to be indicted. We're going to have trouble. And the other party will do that. I think we've seen that. They've done that. There's some very bad people. And you have an opposition party, and they will do things that are very bad. If you don't have immunity, you can be blackmailed. You can be, as a president, they'll say, if you don't do this, this, and this, we're going to indict you as soon as you leave office. You cannot allow a president to be out there without immunity. If they don't have immunity, you don't have a presidency. You lose all, you lose all form of free thought and good thought. And you probably weaken the presidency to a point that it was never supposed to be weakened. It would be a very bad thing for our country. We'll be talking about immunity in the coming weeks.
How confident are you that you will be treated fairly by the Supreme Court justices? And how much of a time frame do you need a decision in order for it not to be irrelevant campaign?
Well, I'm a believer in our country, and I'm a believer in the Supreme Court. I listened today, and I thought our arguments were very, very strong. An argument that is very important is the fact that you're leading in every race, you're leading in every state, you're leading in the country against both Republican and Democrat. And Biden, you're leading in the country by a lot. And can you take the person that's leading everywhere and say, hey, we're not going to let you run? You know, I think that's pretty tough to do, but I'm leaving it up to the Supreme Court. Thank you all very much. Enjoy it. Thank you.
And former President Donald Trump there taking questions and reacting to the oral argument in the appeal heard by the Supreme Court a short time ago. Trump versus Anderson, dealing with whether Colorado can decide the former president is ineligible for the state's primary, according to the 14th Amendment. C-SPAN's cameras outside the court waiting to hear from those who argued the appeal. While the former president was talking, the Colorado Secretary of State and the chair of the Colorado Republican Party made brief remarks here. Tonight, we'll be discussing the Supreme Court argument, and we'll be taking your calls at 8 p.m. Eastern. We're going to follow that up with the oral argument in its entirety at 8:30. We'll have all of that here on C-SPAN as we just keep an eye here on the steps of the Supreme Court.
Is Emily talking to you? I know her. I've seen her husband's working for her. I'm not sure.
I was encouraged. I think that the justices understood that this was a misapplication of the 14th Amendment.
Okay, so I'm going to do that on a single. Until the show, do a single. So maybe, go ahead. Yeah, after the shot. Okay, so let's, for this first little bit, you're going to be out of the shot. Okay, so you can stand behind this. So,
All I heard was I did a beauty shot. Like, I posted yesterday. Not here. I'll tell you that.
what's this one? Okay. Okay, thank you.
And tonight we'll let you know the Supreme Court argument. We're going to be taking your calls and hearing from you at 8 p.m. Eastern. We're going to follow that up by the oral argument in its entirety at 8:30. We'll have all of that here on C-SPAN. And later this afternoon, Supreme Court Justice Elena Kagan will be interviewed by federal judge Jeffrey Sutton. It's part of the 2024 Supreme Court Fellows Program at the Library of Congress in Washington, D.C. We'll have live coverage at 3:15 p.m. Eastern here on C-SPAN. C-SPAN is your unfiltered view of government. We're funded by these television companies and more, including Cox.
Coulin-de-Vries syndrome is extremely rare.
Hi.
But friends don't have to be.
This is Joe.
When you're connected, you're not alone.
Cox supports C-SPAN as a public service, along with these other television providers, giving you a front row seat to democracy. Coming up, Georgia Republican Secretary of State Brad Raffensperger taking part in a discussion on election security. He also discusses his phone call with former President Donald Trump, in which he was asked to change Georgia's presidential election results. Hosted by Georgetown University in Washington, D.C., this runs just over an hour.
Good evening. My name is Catherine Hughes, and I'm a freshman in the School of Foreign Service, majoring in international politics. I've been involved with GU politics through the pre-orientation program Campaign Boot Camp, where students get a behind-the-scenes look on what's needed to run a successful campaign. Growing up in rural Georgia, I've seen firsthand how increasing mistrust in elections has negatively impacted the current political climate. Secretary Raffensperger's dedication to election security and trust in the democratic process serve as excellent examples for aspiring public servants like myself. Today, it is my pleasure to introduce Georgia's Secretary of State, Brad Raffensperger. Brad Raffensperger is Georgia's 29th Secretary of State, first elected in 2018 and overwhelmingly re-elected in 2022. Raffensperger was elected to the City Council in Johns Creek, Georgia. 3 years later, he was elected to the Georgia House of Representatives, where he then served for 2 terms, and in 2018, Georgia voters elected him Secretary of State. The Secretary's top priority is secure and accessible elections. As Secretary of State, Raffensperger delivered the largest implementation of voting machines in the history of this country, on time and on budget. Under Raffensperger's leadership, Georgia modernized its election system by adding its first auditable paper ballot system and giving the power to secure Georgia's elections directly to the voter. He is the first Secretary of State to pass legislation requiring photo ID for all forms of voting, and first to hold counties accountable to voters by expanding polling places. Following his remarks, the Secretary will take your questions in a discussion moderated by Mo Alethi, Executive Director of GU Politics. You can join the conversation on social media by tagging @GU Politics and the official event hashtag Raffensperger@GU. Now, please join me in welcoming to the stage Mo Alethi and Georgia Secretary of State, Brad Raffensperger.
Good evening. Catherine, thank you so much for that warm introduction and for your continued participation in what we do at GU Politics. Thank all of you for coming tonight and spending part of your evening with us for what I expect will be a really interesting conversation. And Mr. Secretary, thank you for coming up and visiting us here on campus.
I'm looking forward to it.
We met back in, I want to say, October or November at a panel discussion up in New York City that I was moderating on the health of democracy, and you were one of the panelists, but because it was a full panel, we didn't get to dive too deep. Now, maybe you were okay with that, but tonight we are gonna dive a little bit deeper. Part of our programming this election year, as we've been thinking about how we want to program leading up to this year's election, we're going to do a lot of stuff about the campaign. But I saw a poll about a month ago that Gallup did that asked how satisfied you were with how democracy is working in this country. And a record low 28% of Americans said that they were satisfied with how democracy was working. That's 17% of Republicans, 38% of Democrats, and only 27% of independents. So we're going to do a lot of programming this year about that, about trust in democracy. And I really wanted to kick that series off with this conversation with you, because the cornerstone of every democracy is the right to vote. And following the last presidential election, we saw a real stress test on America's trust in elections. And you, this structural engineer who came to politics a little bit later from a non-traditional past, found yourself at the center of that national sort of maelstrom. I want to start there, not spend too much time there, and then look forward. But everyone here is familiar with the infamous phone call. Then President of the United States calling you up and asking you to find him 11,780 votes. I guess I would just like to start on a human level. What was it like getting that phone call, and how did you grapple with that?
Well, it's not something I looked forward to for many reasons. Because since the election of November, we had been pushing back on all the misinformation, disinformation. But somewhere,
Instead of just asking, how can we make Sarah's wrist better? At MedStar Health, we ask, how can we better the whole experience? That connects her with a specialist's office, that schedules the appointment, that gets her in for surgery, that makes only a tiny incision. That means she's home that day with her post-op instructions at her fingertips. Her much-needed fingertips. How we get Sarah back to her life is about so much more than how we treat her wrist. MedStar Health, it's how we treat people.
Welcome to this evening's debate at Belmont University here in Nashville. I am Janet Brown, Executive Director of the Commission on Presidential Debates. Over the next few minutes, you will hear some ground rules for the evening and many expressions of gratitude to the people and organizations who got us here tonight. I'd like to start with three of them who are genuine champions of debate and true friends to the CPD. The first is Dr. Robert Fisher, the president of Belmont University. We held a 2008 debate here. Belmont served as a backup site in 2016, and Bob has managed to make this evening happen in spite of a lot of challenges that 2020 has brought to this campus and all the others across the country. They don't come any better than Bob and his colleagues. The second is Nashville's own Martin Slutsky. Marty has been the CPD's executive producer since 2000, and tonight is his 23rd debate. We could never do this without Marty, and he's a treasure. The third is our third co-chair, Dot Ridings, who is not here with us this evening. She is in Louisville, Kentucky at home, but here in spirit. She is an absolutely remarkable asset to the CPD board and staff. I'd like now to introduce the other co-chairs, our founding co-chair, Frank Fahrenkopf, and Ken Wallach.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and I join Janet in welcoming you all to Belmont and to Nashville. And we really owe a great debt of gratitude to the city and to this university. They've been so courteous and working so hard for us. And what a beautiful place this is. I hope you all got a chance to walk around and see this marvelous campus. We also have a crew. You see some of the people working around. There are cameramen, lighting people, people who produce this great background. We have over 60 of them. And we've had 4 debates in 4 different parts of this country. And thanks to United Airlines, which stepped up to the plate and is providing free of charge air service for our entire crew back and forth from one city to another. And so we really owe United Airlines. Now this one sounds funny, but we also owe Anheuser-Busch a great thank you, not only for their beer, but for what they've done for this commission for many, many years. It's a little less of a lift now. Normally, if we were here with normal times, there'd be 900 of you probably in this audience. But with coronavirus, it just wasn't necessary for us to, and possible for us to do that. But they have always provided a giant tent with the food to feed the 5,000 reporters that usually come from all over the world, our crew, the news people who are here. And Anheuser-Busch is with us again this year, and we thank them. A Pentagram, who's really responsible for some of the great work you see here. Crowell & Mooring, a firm in Washington, law firm. And tonight at the National Press Club in Washington, D.C., the National Press Club is putting on, for the 4th time, a media filing center. If those of you walk around the campus, you'll see a giant tent out here. And that's where media from all over the world are sitting at tables, watching this on television, and filing their stories. And many, many, because of the coronavirus, were not able to come here for this. And so the National Press Club has set up a national filing center a media filing center for them. Now, there's been a lot of controversy about this debate, and so I want to spend a few minutes telling you what the rules are, because I think there's been some misconceptions and misstatement of what the rules are. We published in July the rules for this debate and the first debate, and they were the same, that the 90 minutes would be divided into 6 15-minute segments, with the moderator of each being able to name the subject matter, the general subject matter of each of those 6 segments. And the parties agreed that for the first 4 minutes of those 15-minute segments, each of them would, for 2 minutes, have the ability to speak without interruption of any sort. Then after they each spoke for 2 minutes, it was open for open debate. Now, unfortunately, if you happen to watch the first debate, those rules were not necessarily followed. And so the commission felt that we could not put in a new rule, and what we thought we would do would just put in a way to enforce what they had agreed to, the original rule, no interruption. So you're going to see tonight, I believe the first question will be directed to the president, and he will speak for 2 minutes. They have lights, you can't see them. They're looking into their cameras that tell them how much time is left and so forth. And at the end of 2 minutes, the president will stop speaking, and then Mr. Biden's microphone, which has been off for the 2 minutes that the president has been speaking, will come on. And this will happen at the start of each of the 6 sections. There's no other censure, there's no other buttons that are going to be pushed to stop them, because the rest of the time in each of the segments is for open debate. We want them to engage each other. We hope they do it civilly and discuss the issues so that the American people will learn something about where they are on the issues. Now, this is a very, very important debate for each of these candidates. The first debate, some weeks ago, had, according to Nielsen, 78 million people who watched it. Now, that doesn't count people who watched it on C-SPAN or people who had it on their computers or on their iPhones or their iPads. We think this debate tonight could reach 100 million people. Now, you're very fortunate. You're sitting on seats that make you part of history. But those people at home are watching to try to learn something about these candidates, to make that important decision as to who they are going to support when they go to the polls if they haven't already done so. So it's not for you to participate by clapping, by standing up, by doing anything that would bring you into this. So please, please don't yell, because you're interfering with what those people are seeing. Now, there also is a rule on masks. It's not only our rule, it's the rule of the city, it's the rule of this university, so that you must wear a mask to come in, and you must keep your mask on. If you remove your mask while you're here, you will be approached, and you'll be asked to put it back on, and if you don't put it back on, you'll be asked to leave, and if you won't leave, you'll be escorted to leave, so which will cause you some embarrassment and will take time away from the important things that are going on today. One other thing, at exactly 8 o'clock, you're going to hear a lot of noise. Because if you turn around and look behind you, those are the anchor booths of the major networks. And at exactly 8 o'clock, they're all going to go on at the same time. And you're going to hear a lot of voices that you'll recognize from different networks. So don't be surprised. That'll go on, and then they'll settle down as we go, and the moderator comes out and also says some words. So with that, let me introduce my co-chairman, Ken Wallach.
Good evening. I join Frank, Janet, and fellow board members, including Yvonne Howe and John Griffin, who are with us tonight, in welcoming you to the 24th presidential debate sponsored and organized by the Commission on Presidential Debates, and the second hosted by Belmont University. As the newest co-chair of the Commission, I'm proud to work alongside dedicated board members and a talented staff and crew who, against uphill odds, have built a nonpartisan institution since the Commission was established in 1987. Our sole mission continues to be the holding of debates that serve and inform the American people. Now, please spare me a moment to explain the Commission's efforts. Debates have evolved over the past 3 decades. More transparent criteria for qualification of debate participants, the trend toward a single moderator in order to focus greater attention on the candidates, and the allocation of time for different subject areas are but a few of the many changes that have been made. Many of the details for organizing the debates are left to agreement by the candidates themselves. The Commission has selected the times and places for debates, the moderators, and the debate formats. Based on experience, these are issues that, if left to the negotiations between the candidates' campaigns, are nearly impossible to resolve in a timely manner. In fact, it were protracted and at times unworkable negotiations on these types of issues that led, in part, to the establishment of the Commission itself. While there is always drama every 4 years, and this year is no exception, the process has worked. And post-debate research shows that the American people have considered these debates an important part of our political process. Debates have also created civic education opportunities for the schools and communities that have hosted them. Here at Belmont, the university has launched the Debate Programming Series that explores issues ranging from democracy to social media. The Commission has augmented these voter education efforts by establishing Debate Watch, which allows participants in all 50 states and Puerto Rico to exchange views on issues raised in debates and to listen respectfully to each other's opinions. Debate Watch 2020 will include more than 1 million participants. Overseas, the Commission, in partnership with the National Democratic Institute, has helped organize more than 400 candidate debates in 45 countries, most importantly, in new and emerging democracies. This initiative has led to the formation of Debates International, a support network of debate organizers from nearly 40 countries. I wanted to recognize the Commission's longest-standing supporter. For the past 32 years, the Judy and Peter Bloom Kovler Foundation has given its trust to the nonpartisan work of the Commission, and we are deeply grateful for their generous contribution to this year's debates. Now, it is my distinct honor to introduce Dr. Bob Fisher, President of Belmont University. Thank you.
Thank you. Hi, Frank. How are you? Thank you. Thank you, and good evening, everyone. Tonight's a night to celebrate America, but if you're Belmont, it's a night to just express gratitude and thankfulness for all that's been done and the opportunities that we've been given. I want to thank the Commission for your support. Janet Brown, thank you. Thank you to the co-chairs. Thank you so much. You know, it's one thing to be a partner when times are kind of easy. It's amazing When times get tough, that's when real partnerships get formed that stick. And this has been a bonding experience. So thank you so much to the commission. Thank you to HCA Healthcare. They're the ones that have given you all these tests and have made sure that everybody here tonight is safe. Their goal was to make this the safest place in America tonight, along with the Secret Service, who I also want to thank, and Metro Police, who I want to thank. All together have made this the safest place in America tonight. I'm so grateful for that. Thank you, Mayor Cooper, for your support. Thank you, Governor Lee. Thank you to the Nashville Convention and Visitors Corporation and the Nashville Chamber of Commerce, all of you. But most of all, I just want to say a heartfelt thank you to the students of Belmont University for sharing their campus with you, all of you this week. This has been a complicated and unusual semester, to say the least. I want to thank the Ryman Hospitalities Corporation for taking several hundred of our students and letting them stay overnight last night and through the day today. I was worried the students would be complaining about that. Actually, they say they don't want to come back. They have a water park out there, and all, but we're going to get them back. But our students have embraced the challenge of living safely together, and we simply couldn't have done that without them. You're probably wondering who these two people are that are standing here beside me. Well, this is Molly Deakins, and this is Kendra Turner. They co-chaired the student volunteer group of 250 students who made this thing happen here at Belmont University, and I'm so grateful to them. Thank you, and thank all the Belmont volunteers for what you've done here. And finally, I have to say this. I've prayed enough about this happening that it'd be totally disingenuous if I didn't say thank you, God, that this is about to happen. God bless America. Thank you.
Moderator for this evening's debate is Kristen Welker of NBC News.
Good evening, everyone. Good evening. Thank you so much for being here. It is such an honor for me to moderate this debate tonight, the final debate. I want to welcome the First Family and the First Lady. We're so glad and thankful that you are feeling better. I want to welcome the Biden family, Dr. Jill Biden. Thank you all for being here tonight. We are so excited. We're looking forward to a really robust discussion. And the only thing I would reiterate are the CPD guidelines that when the candidates are talking, please hold any applause or any other reactions, except, of course, when they walk out. Make sure you cheer and loud and applause so that everyone can hear you. Thank you for having me. This is really the honor of a lifetime. I am going to sit down and just get organized and get settled, and the show will start very soon. Thank you for being here. Good evening from Belmont University in Nashville, Tennessee. I'm Kristen Welker of NBC News, and I welcome you to the final 2020 presidential debate between President Donald J. Trump and former Vice President Joe Biden. Tonight's debate is sponsored by the Commission on Presidential Debates. It is conducted under health and safety protocols designed by the Commission's health security advisor. The audience here in the hall has promised to remain silent. No cheers, boos, or other interruptions, except right now, as we welcome to the stage former Vice President Joe Biden and President Donald J. Trump. And I do want to say a very good evening to both of you. This debate will cover 6 major topics. At the beginning of each section, each candidate will have 2 minutes uninterrupted to answer my first question. The debate commission will then turn on their microphone only when it is their turn to answer, and the commission will turn it off exactly when the 2 minutes have expired. After that, both microphones will remain on, but on behalf of the voters, I'm going to ask you to please speak one at a time. The goal is for you to hear each other and for the American people to hear every word of what you both have to say. And so with that, if you're ready, let's start. And we will begin with the fight against the coronavirus. President Trump, the first question is for you. The country is heading into a dangerous new phase. More than 40,000 Americans are in the hospital tonight with COVID, including record numbers here in Tennessee. And since the two of you last shared a stage, 16,000 Americans have died from COVID. So please be specific. How would you lead the country during this next stage of the coronavirus crisis? 2 minutes, uninterrupted.
So, as you know, 2.2 million people modeled out were expected to die. We closed up the greatest economy in the world in order to fight this horrible disease that came from China. It's a worldwide pandemic. It's all over the world. You see the spikes in Europe and many other places right now. If you notice, the mortality rate is down 85%. The excess mortality rate is way down and much lower than almost any other country. And we're fighting it, and we're fighting it hard. There is a spike. There was a spike in Florida, and it's now gone. There was a very big spike in Texas. It's now gone. There was a very big spike in Arizona. It's now gone. And there are some spikes and surges in other places. They will soon be gone. We have a vaccine that's coming. It's ready. It's going to be announced within weeks, and it's going to be delivered. We have Operation Warp Speed, which is the military is going to distribute the vaccine. I can tell you from personal experience that I was in the hospital. I had it, and I got better. And I will tell you that I had something that they gave me, a therapeutic, I guess they would call it. Some people could say it was a cure. But I was in for a short period of time, and I got better very fast, or I wouldn't be here tonight. And now they say I'm immune. Whether it's 4 months or a lifetime, nobody's been able to say that, but I'm immune. More and more people are getting better. We have a problem that's a worldwide problem. This is a worldwide problem. But I've been congratulated by the heads of many countries on what we've been able to do. If you take a look at what we've done in terms of goggles and masks and gowns and everything else, and in particular ventilators. We're now making ventilators all over the world, thousands and thousands a month, distributing them all over the world. It will go away, and as I say, we're rounding the turn, we're rounding the corner. It's going away.
Okay, former Vice President Biden, to you, how would you lead the country out of this crisis? You have 2 minutes uninterrupted.
220,000 Americans dead. If you hear nothing else I say tonight, hear this. Anyone who's responsible for not taking control, in fact, not saying I take no responsibility initially, anyone who's responsible for that many deaths should not remain as President of the United States of America. We're in a situation where there are 1,000 deaths a day now, 1,000 deaths a day, and there are over 70,000 new cases per day. Compared to what's going on in Europe, as the New England Medical Journal said, they're starting from a very low rate. We're starting from a very high rate. The expectation is we'll have another 200,000 Americans dead between now and the end of the year. If we just wore these masks, the president's own advisors have told him, we could save 100,000 lives. And we're in a circumstance where the president thus far and still has no plan, no comprehensive plan. What I would do is make sure we have everyone encouraged to wear a mask all the time. I would make sure we move in the direction of rapid testing, investing in rapid testing. I would make sure that we set up national standards as to how to open up schools and open up businesses so they can be safe and give them the wherewithal, the financial resources to be able to do that. We're in a situation now where the New England Medical Journal, one of the most serious journals in the whole world, said for the first time ever that the way this president has responded to this crisis has been absolutely tragic. And so, folks, I will take care of this. I will end this. I will make sure we have a plan.
President Trump, I'd like to follow up with you in your comments. You talked about taking a therapeutic. I assume you're referencing Regeneron. You also said a vaccine will be coming within weeks.
Yes.
Is that a guarantee?
No, it's not a guarantee, but it will be by the end of the year. But I think it has a good chance. There are two companies, I think, within a matter of weeks, and it will be distributed very quickly.
Can you tell us which companies?
Johnson & Johnson is doing very well. Moderna is doing very well. Pfizer is doing very well. And we have numerous others. Then we also have others that we're working on very closely with other countries, in particular Europe.
Let me follow up with you, and because this is new information, you have said a vaccine is coming soon, within weeks now. Your own officials say it could take well into 2021 at the earliest for enough Americans to get vaccinated. And even then, they say the country will be wearing masks and distancing into 2022. Is your timeline realistic?
No, I think my timeline is going to be more accurate. I don't know that they're counting on the military the way I do, but we have our generals lined up, one in particular, that's the head of logistics. And this is a very easy distribution for him. He's ready to go as soon as we have the vaccine. And we expect to have 100 million vials. As soon as we have the vaccine, he's ready to go.
Vice President Biden, your reaction, and just 40% of Americans say they would definitely agree to take a coronavirus vaccine if it was approved by the government. What steps would you take to give Americans confidence in a vaccine if it were approved?
Make sure it's totally transparent. Have the scientists of the world see it, know it, look at it, go through all the processes. And by the way, this is the same fellow who told you this is going to end by Easter last time. This is the same fellow who told you that, don't worry, we're going to end this by the summer. We're about to go into a dark winter, and he has no clear plan, and there's no prospect that there's going to be a vaccine available for the majority of the American people before the middle of next year.
President Trump, your reaction, he says you have no plan.
I don't think we're going to have a dark winter at all. We're opening up our country. We've learned and studied and understand the disease, which we didn't at the beginning. When I closed and banned China from coming in heavily infected, and then ultimately Europe, but China was in January. Months later, he was saying I was xenophobic. I did it too soon. Now he's saying, oh, I should have, moved quicker. But he didn't move quicker. He was months behind me, many months behind me. And frankly, he ran the H1N1 swine flu, and it was a total disaster, far less lethal, but it was a total disaster. Had that had this kind of numbers, 700,000 people would be dead right now, but it was a far less lethal disease. Look, his own person who ran that for him, who, as you know, was his chief of staff, said it was catastrophic, it was horrible, we didn't know what we were doing. Now he comes up and he tells us how to do this. Also, everything that he said about the way every single move that he said we should make, that's what we've done. We've done all of it. But he was way behind us.
Vice President Biden, your response.
My response is he is